Check out monorail.com, America's affordable investment app, made for conservatives who want to keep their hard-earned money with companies that share their value. Download the Monorail app today. Join Monorail. Hey, hi there, everybody. Wow, I can't believe it. 2023. Sort of the number of a science fiction movie. 2023. Yep. It's my brother's birthday today. My older brother, he's 6 years older, called him up, and he said, it's sort of like your life is sort of like a movie, and you're really enjoying the movie, but you realize it's going to come to an end. I'm laughing because it's a very, shall we say, somewhat dark note with which to begin the year. I think that our inability to acknowledge the dark is a big problem. I write about it in my happiness book. Hi, everybody. I just devoted, let's see, today is Tuesday, started Monday. I devoted 8 days, 4 of us, the editor, Joseph Talishkin, the producer of the entire project of my Bible commentary, Joel Alperson. Joseph Talishkin came in from New York City, and Joel Alperson came in from Omaha, Nebraska. And my wife and I, we are the 4. We read every single word of the commentary. I have a 4th book coming out in, I don't know, about a year and a half. It's called the Book of Numbers. In Hebrew, it's In the Wilderness. Every single word is written. This is like the 4th or 5th incarnation of any given chapter. As I say to readers of my works, I work hard so that the reader doesn't. You can't imagine how much work goes into every single sentence. And that's what I've done for the last 8 days. Perfect timing. I don't have speeches, not traveling anywhere. And we got 14 chapters done. That's the good news. The bad news is there are 35. Well, got to make a start somewhere. So I wish you a happier New Year. I can't say Happy New Year. My expectations are not gigantic, but a happier New Year would be good. Didn't start off with a happy note with the nationally covered and so somewhat understandably preoccupied football player named Damar Hamlin, who simply collapsed. Yep, just fell down, and he's now in a coma, to the best of my knowledge. Is that right, Sean? Is he in a coma? Is that the, yeah, that was the last we heard. The lying media, it's absolutely correct, which don't investigate truth if it doesn't appeal to them. Don't even raise the issue of why somebody so healthy and so young would have such a cardiac event. But if you follow this issue, as I have, the increase in heart conditions among young men 19 to 25 who have been vaccinated is dramatic. And the despicable football teams, like the despicable universities and despicable schools elsewhere, ordering everyone to get a vaccine because they're sheep. The human condition is sheep-like. It is the outlier who does any good in human history. If you think about anyone that you regard historically as worthy of admiration, you will say there is one commonality among them. They are outliers. The human condition is to be a sheep. And sheep do a lot of bad. They don't wake up thinking, hey, how do I do bad today? Most most rotten things are not done by people who wake up, how can I do bad today? Some do, like the murders in Idaho. Anyway, when I hear that he has had neurological damage because there was no oxygen to his brain for a certain period of time, I get very worried. I do indeed. The lack of transparency and honesty on the part of the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, the NFL, the NBA, the whole gang, every institution is run by the morally compromised. They won't even ask the question. Instead, if you raise the question, you're called a conspiracy monger or conspiracy thinker. What does it have to do with conspiracy? I'm not arguing there's a conspiracy. I'm arguing that there is pure, undiluted lying. That's worse than a conspiracy. That they don't even ask the questions that some of the most prominent physicians in the country are asking about the effects of the vaccine on the fully healthy and young people who do not die from COVID. Forcing them to take the vaccine is evil, as in the armed forces. Virtually I would say at least every week, I read about, and this is what these are famous people, otherwise you wouldn't read about them. People just dropping dead, and of course they don't perform an autopsy. They don't want to know the truth. So people go on their merry ways, people believe what they are told to believe. I don't. I believe what is true. Truth is a Hebrew phrase. Truth is the signature of God. It is the greatest of the traits along with courage. But to pursue truth takes courage. So truth and courage are virtually synonymous. When the world is steeped in lies, and so pursuing truth is an act of courage. Cowardice is a defining element of the sheep, and especially of the left, who simply advocate that which is destructive. I live in a state, as of today, California, wherein if you want your son castrated, just bring him to California. They will do it. You want your healthy daughter's breasts cut off? Come to California. We'll do it. I live in a despicable state. Why do I stay here? Because there are too many wonderful people whom I love who are here. That's why. My state is scummy. Gavin Newsom is despicable. The Democrats of the state are vile. You want your daughter's breast cut off? Come to California. This will be regarded historically as one of the most obscene acts in Western history, what California has done. Bring your daughter here to have her breasts cut off because she says she's a boy. And the beauty is, they're proud of it. Gavin Newsom and the Democrats in the State Assembly and Senate of California are proud of it. And there are still people who believe that human nature is essentially good. Here's an antidote to that belief. California is an antidote to the idiotic, stupid, naive belief that human nature is essentially good. This is an essentially bad state. A lot of good people in it, but it's a bad state. When I moved here, it was not a bad state. I have watched a moral decline that takes your breath away. Yep. Wait till I read to you later what is going on in the armed forces. The weakening of the armed forces by the left, because remember, the left builds nothing except state power. It destroys, but it doesn't build. And it's a lot easier to destroy. Art, music, medicine, law, you name it. 1-8-PRAGER-776. Sorry to start the year on such a dark note. By the way, as you noticed, I retained the theme. The gladiator theme remains the theme of the show. You voted for it, and while my show is not a democracy, your arguments prevailed. And so I offered last week some alternatives, and what I will do is introduce periodically some fantastic music into the bumper music. But we're staying with Gladiator. Look, you did the tough thing during COVID. You paid your people and pulled your business through the pandemic, or really the lockdown. And now, doing the tough thing could qualify you for up to $26,000 per employee at covidtaxrelief.org. Government funds are available to reward companies with 2 or more employees who stayed open during COVID. This is not a loan, and you don't have to pay it back. The program is complicated, but nobody knows more about it than the CPAs and tax experts at covidtaxrelief.org. You pay nothing up front. They do all the work and share a percentage of the cash they get you. Businesses of all types, including nonprofits and churches, can qualify, including those who took PPP loans, even if you had increases in sales. You did the tough thing for your employees during COVID. Let covidtaxrelief.org help you get up to $26,000 per employee. Visit covidtaxrelief.org. That's covidtaxrelief.org. All right, everybody. It's very interesting. Doctors are calling in that it had nothing to do with the vaccine. I didn't say it did. I say that if you don't investigate, you are engaged in malpractice, whether you're a doctor or not a doctor. All the young men who are dying, the increase in myocarditis or other phenomena of the heart in young men is worthy of investigation, but they don't investigate. So I'm just summarizing. There are people calling in. No, he got it because he was hit. Really? How many football players are hit in any one game and none of them drop dead or nearly drop dead on the field a few seconds later? I'm sure that the adrenaline or whatever from a normal tackle instigated the event. It didn't happen while he was crossing the street. I fully acknowledge that. But if you're a doctor and you don't call for an investigation, then you're not true to your calling as a doctor. But I have given up on the medical profession since the American Medical Association announced that there's no such thing as sex that you're born with. That's the American Medical Association. I've given up on the medical community since the American Academy of Pediatrics announced that it supports girls having their breasts cut off if they're healthy, but they say they're boys. The corruption of your profession, if you're a doctor, is steep. And if you don't protest it, you are part of the problem of America today. I'm sure you're a nice person. Nice people do most damage in the world. Very few people are truly not nice. Do you know any? How many of you know people whom you can say are truly not nice? It means nothing. It means nothing. I mean, I'd rather have a nice neighbor than a not nice neighbor. Yes, that's true. Nice people can have a sheep-like behavior. The medical profession has disgraced itself. Okay? Period. End of issue. And doctors saved my life. I only have gratitude to doctors. But I am more committed to truth than into being loved by the medical community. I don't know what caused this man's horrible incident. Neither do you. Don't tell me it was a tackle. You're lying to yourself. So I handled, so doctors, you don't have to call in because I have made my case. You have no case to make. You don't know and I don't know. But the difference is I want to know and you don't. That's the difference between me and most doctors. You don't want to know the truth about the vaccine. You believe that Pfizer is divine and the CDC is divine. the CDC says is what medieval religious people regarded as thus saith the Lord. Experts say is the same to the secular physician as thus saith the Lord is to the deeply religious. Okay, not to me. If experts say it, I assume it's stupid. Okay? I have a totally opposite view of most people. When I hear experts say the record of quote-unquote experts is so bad that I assume they're either lying or just plain foolish. They're not lying about their expertise. No, if a cardiologist tells me how a heart functions, I totally believe him. But when it comes to policy, why does a doctor have any greater judgment than a taxi driver? If you're not prepared to perform autopsies on all these people, 19 to 24, who are dying, all these men who are dying who had been vaccinated, if you're not even prepared to investigate, then you don't seek truth. That's it. The issue is seeking truth. Has nothing to do with conspiracies. I don't believe there's a conspiracy. What's the conspiracy? The conspiracy, if there's a conspiracy, it's a conspiracy not to know the truth. That's the worst conspiracy that people can engage in. Okay. We can continue here. 1-8-Prager-776. Yes. There's a terrible story that I just saw about my disgusting state, California. Sorry to start off with such stuff, but I can't patronize you. Where is this story? Yes, here it is. Texas Supreme Court condemns boy to trans treatment in California. Wow. Jeff Younger's ex-wife wants to transition his young son into a girl, and he's been fighting in court to prevent her from doing so. Jex F. White is a pediatrician. Oh, shockaroo! Another sheep-like doctor. She wants to transition her little boy into a girl, and she's an MD, a pediatrician. Oh my God, is that surprising? And a female pediatrician at that. The disproportionate role of females in the transgender movement is a fascinating phenomenon. That's all I will say. You can judge. Maybe they have played a tremendously moral role in the world of children. All these women who teach little kids and provide them with drag queen story hours. And likewise, all these people at Boston Children's Hospital, disproportionately the female part, to which the simple-minded will say, oh, that's misogynist. Really? If I tell you that it is men who are the violence producers, am I a man-hater? The left does not value truth. That's why they call everyone who differs with them names. Truth is as irrelevant to the left as anything can be. They don't pursue truth. They pursue enemies. Jeff's ex-wife is a pediatrician, has been socially transitioning James since he was 2. Wow. Poor man. Poor kid. To get stuck with this woman as a wife and now an ex-wife and get stuck with this as a mother. Transitioning a boy into a girl since he was 2. Wow. I want you to take that in. This is a real life story. My God, my heart breaks for this child and for this father. I have 2 boys. Oh my God, is this a painful story. The ongoing custody battle between Younger and Georgoulas, who practices as a pediatrician, is continuing. There's a lot of talk about the Great Reset and digital currencies. The U.S. government has been floating the idea of a digital dollar for quite some time, opening up the door to the government controlling your bank account, or worse yet, freezing your money. They did that in Canada, remember? This is Dennis Prager for AmFed Coin and Bullion, and for my friend Nick Grovich. Now more than ever in this woke world, it's important to own tangible assets like gold and silver. Owning physical gold and silver gives you control over your wealth. They're proven, stable commodities that have held their value over time, beyond the overarching reach of government. And it's so important you do business with a trustworthy and transparent company like AmFed Coin and Bullion. AmFed's owner, Nick, and his experienced team will always provide you with honest, sound advice. No pressure sales. Moving a portion of your wealth into precious metals is a prudent decision. Call AmFed Coin and Bullion. 800-221-7694. AmericanFederal.com. AmericanFederal.com. This is such a sad story. Sick times we live in. This poor guy, he and his sick wife, a pediatrician, divorced. He has no rights with regard to his children, his twin boys. She has raised one of them since the age of 2 as a girl. Pediatrician. That's right. If you have a strong, morally strong, rational doctor, treasure him or her. They're not the majority. What I don't understand about this case is, did they not have joint custody? How could she take the 2 children out of Texas? Well, forget the fact that she's mutilating a child who's now 10. I don't understand how one spouse can just take the children away if there's joint custody. I actually would like to have this man on the show. She took both boys. The number of lives this woman is ruining, this pediatrician. Did I mention that she's a pediatrician? The number of lives, she's ruining her son's life. She's ruining the father's life, and she's ruining the twin brother's life. You have a twin brother who is now a girl. What does that do to your mind? What does that do to your perception of reality, your relationship, the stability of the universe? The most important thing for a child is not love from a parent, it's stability. It's guardrails. Children need guardrails. They need to believe the world is secure. Children need security. The left gives children insecurity. You're not a boy, you're not a girl. Your country is a piece of crap. It's always been a piece of crap. You're just white garbage. The world is divided by race. That's what matters. Your character doesn't mean a damn thing. They don't even use the word character. It's a dirty word on the left. Your color matters. Oh, that's deep. Then you wonder why there are so many kids who are on psychiatric meds. It is no wonder. So California, as of January 1st, this is it today. Today's the 3rd, but this is it. Democrats, the left can pass a law saying the earth is flat. And if you deny it's flat, you're a conspiracy thinker. Why is the earth is flat any different from men give birth? That doesn't strike me as any different in terms of truth. But if you say the earth is flat enough, the sheep of the human race will say the earth is flat, and if you deny it's flat, you are a conspiracy thinker. You are engaged in misinformation and disinformation. What do you mean the earth is round? I don't understand how the wife got to take the child to this disgusting state of California. A source of evil on earth, because California influences America, and America then sends these toxic ideas abroad. Should read my column today. It's at DennisPrager.com. It is at townhall.com, and it will circulate around the major conservative media in the course of the week. That America is the greatest exporter of bad ideas, destructive ideas in the world today. Amazing. Truly amazing. It never occurred to me that I would ever say that. I've associated this country all of my life with with spreading good ideas to the world. But the left has taken over this country. Switzerland just announced, for example, that there are only two sexes. It's actually announced it. If you're a citizen of Switzerland, on a government form, there's male and female, because that's all there is. They have not bought the toxicity of America's poisoning of the world because the left has poisoned America. That sex is a spectrum. How come they didn't know this in all of medical history? Is this a new discovery? No. It's a new invention, which only the well-educated believe. Hey everybody, a happier new year to you. I like to minimize expectations. If the year is happier, it will be good. I'm not expecting a happy one. I mean, I'm a happy person. I'm blessed. But I'm talking about, in general, in this society at this time, a happy new year is asking for a lot. But happier, that's doable. Welcome to the show, the Dennis Prager Show. As you have heard, I have retained, after deep, deep soul-searching, I have retained the gladiator theme for the show. Last week, my two favorite weeks of the year are now over, but last week I meditated publicly with regard to possibly changing the theme, because we've had this since 2001, since 9/11. 1 from 23 is 22, but let's say 21 and a half years. And aside from just liking the idea of perhaps flirting with another theme, I thought that it would be a good idea, since the battle is even greater today than after 9/11. That was with Islamic terror. This is with the left in the Western world, which is crushing the Western world far more effectively than Islamic terror could. This is wrenching the soul out of the West. That kills people, which is a horrible, terrible thing. So you have your choice. Do you kill society or do you kill individuals? They're both terrible. Well, we have this battle, and I wanted to preserve Western civilization in some symbolic way by having some great piece of Western music as the theme. Sean, why don't you play the Tchaikovsky theme from last week? This was what we were debating. Is it now in the memory hole of history? I can totally understand if it is, but if you can dig it up. Anyway, that was the big alternative. I offered a Beethoven and a Dvorak, and this got a lot of votes, but I have retained, as you heard, the Gladiator theme. If I can get 10% of you to fall in love with classical music, I will have done a service to society, and, of course, to the 10% of you who will be so profoundly enriched. Here are some laws that are coming into effect as of this week. In other words, the first week of the year in California, a state that is being crushed and therefore sending its despicable ideas around the world. Perhaps the worst is sanctuary state for transgender kids, as I reported in the first hour. A Texas divorced couple had twin boys. They are 10 years of age. The ex-wife has moved to California, taken both boys, one of whom she has worked on to be a girl since he was 2 years of age. The father believes the reality that it is a boy. The mother is, not shockingly, a doctor, a pediatrician, a female pediatrician. And those are demographics that are particularly predisposed to changing the sex, altering the hormones, and permanently disfiguring children. Why? Ask the Holy One, blessed be He in heaven. I don't know why, but that is the way it is. And I don't know why she had the right to take the children away from the other spouse. I assume it was joint custody. I had joint custody, and neither I nor my ex-wife at the time were allowed to just take the children out of state. How was that allowed? The Texas Supreme Court, by the way, allowed it, and I don't know how they did that. So much for Texas and its care for human beings from a traditional perspective. I mean, obviously Texas is a great state, and it is, no question about it. Its Supreme Court, obviously, is either composed of weak Republicans or advocative Democrats. Anyway, the first one I'm bringing to you, SB, Senate Bill 107. This law, signed by Governor Gavin Newsom in September, protects the use of drugs or surgery to provide gender-affirming care, unquote, to children from other states where the use of such treatments is restricted or criminalized. Not only that, I don't even understand how this is legal. It prohibits doctors from releasing information to other states and prohibits California courts interfering in child custody over such treatments. Not only can you take your child away from the other parent and have her breast cut off in California, but they prohibit the doctors from telling the other spouse, the other parent, that that's what they did or that's what they will do. The interesting thing for those of you interested in humanity is that the people in the California Senate and Gavin Newsom sleep well at night. The ability of human beings to dull the conscience is infinite. The conscience is about as weak in most human beings in history and today as I can't even think of a parallel. I would say you get as much moral guidance from your appendix as from your conscience in most human beings. The fact that these Democrats sleep well, in that after passing laws to make sure that the mutilation of children is legal, proves that the conscience in most people is useless. Another bill that comes into force this week, first week of the year, the COVID Misinformation Bill, Assembly Bill 2098. The law, signed in September, requires California's Medical Licensing Board to take disciplinary action against doctors who are involved with the, quote, dissemination of misinformation or disinformation related to the SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus or COVID-19. That's right. So if you're a doctor in California and you tell your patient who has early stage COVID, you might try hydroxychloroquine and zinc, you might try ivermectin, you can lose your license as a doctor. This is unprecedented to the best of my knowledge. If you say that there might be no reason on earth for you, someone under 50, to take the vaccine, let alone if you are in your 20s or teens, you can lose your license to practice medicine. I guess they are unaware that a country as progressive as Denmark has essentially banned, you're allowed to have it, but it is opposed to any Dane who is healthy and under 50 from taking the COVID vaccine. How many people reading the mainstream press know that? The answer is probably zero. Oh, but here's the cutest one. This is inventive. This is inventive. Assembly Bill 2147 goes into effect today, decriminalizing jaywalking because of racism. What do you think of that? Yep. It's called the Freedom to Walk Act. Presumes that jaywalking is a racist crime because it is supposedly enforced unevenly in the nation's most left-wing state in communities of color, where people apparently cannot pay the fines. The law prevents police from stopping people who are crossing the street illegally unless they are in danger.
Every day when I pass a mirror, I still can't believe it. It's me! I'm looking back at myself. I never thought I'd be this fit again, but 42 pounds ago, I decided to take control of my health. And with the help of my PhD weight loss and nutrition, I'm so glad I did. The program is simple. Dr. Ashley Lucas and her amazing team customize a plan for your body to make it simple. They even provide 80% of your food at no additional cost. They treat your entire person as one. Dr. Ashley believes that all change starts with the mind. She'll help you to change your behavior when it comes to food and think differently about food so you'll never gain the weight back. Give them a call right now at 864-644-1900 and they can answer all your questions. If I can do it, you can do it.
You're running around, you know better, Daddy.
Hey, all Dennis Prager with you. All right, I am reading to you bills that are going into effect in California. First is the sanctuary state. You could take your kid away from the other parent, come to California, and have your girl's breasts removed by some despicable surgeon in some despicable hospital. And you don't even have to inform the other parent. Sanctuary state for child mutilation. Wow. As I wrote many years ago, the article is one of the literally thousand of my articles on the internet. The left keeps me religious. It's true. When I realize the dead end that secularism comes to, where the society supports the mutilation of children, then I realize, whoa, who's opposed to it? Disproportionately religious Jews and Christians. Why doesn't that tell you something? Don't you judge? Aren't you supposed to judge every ideology by its fruit? Is the secular left producing beauty, kindness, rationality? Do you know that there are now more and more districts that are telling kids that they have to come to school with a mask on? Now, in 2023. I'll talk to you about that later. So the COVID misinformation law, if a doctor says stuff that the perverse medical community the disreputable American Medical Association or California Medical Association disagrees with, you can lose your license to practice medicine. Then there is decriminalizing jaywalking because blacks are disproportionately fined for jaywalking. I talk to my black friends about this all the time, and they're just, oh God, they're traumatized by the jaywalking stoppings that take place in California. Let's see, here's a new one. I hadn't read about this. SB 1375, Senate bill, allowing nurses to perform abortions without doctors. Wow. I didn't read this one. This law attempts to expand access to abortion by allowing qualified nurses to perform certain abortion procedures in the first trimester of pregnancy without the supervision of a doctor. Huh. Let's see here. SB 357, decriminalizing loitering for prostitution. Criminalizes loitering in public for the purposes of committing prostitution, which remains a crime. I don't know how that, I mean, I just don't know how that works. If you loiter for prostitution, you could be arrested. That's legal, but if you actually engage in it, that's illegal. All right. I just wanted to get the logic of it. And let's see, state control of fast food restaurants, that's on hold. Ooh, as reported last year, this law, quote, creates a 10-member Politburo, this is Breitbart News, known as the Fast Food Council, which would serve for 10 years and would set wages and working conditions for the fast food industry. It has been suspended by the courts after a coalition of restaurants that collected petition signatures sued to block it until a referendum can be held. All right. Every year I bring to you new laws passed in California. Okay, let's see here. Mayfield Heights, Ohio. Mark of Mayfield Heights. Hello. Happy New Year. Happier New Year.
Thank you. Pleasure speaking with you. Dennis, I'm a longtime listener, and I hear you complaining, rightly so, every single day about the insanity of the transgender movement and mutilation of children, and it all makes me ill, and it's very engaging radio, but I think we have to stop with the engaging radio and just offer some solutions. I don't have them. What are 3 solutions to save that could actually work to save all the kids in public school right now? I know we can complain about it. Everyone knows.
It's a totally fair question. I thank you for calling. I offer solutions virtually every day. One is get your kid out of public school. Get your kid out of most private schools. Homeschool them or find a school that actually teaches rather than indoctrinates in toxic ideas. People ask me, why don't you leave California? Completely valid question. However, it's not 1/10 as valid as why do you keep your kids in a regular school? Right? I'm not being toxically affected by the toxicity of California. Your child is being affected by toxic ideas. So, by the way, that's true for most places, including red states. Their schools are not particularly different from the schools of blue states. And another solution is to vote Republican. As weak-willed as many Republicans are, they're light years better than the Democrats. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Dennis Prager Show, the Ultimate Issues Hour. And we have on the Dennis Prager Show, I remind you each year, and this is the beginning of the year, I remind you that we have a male-female hour, we have an Ultimate Issues Hour, we have a happiness hour. to deal with all the great issues of life. And they are great. So my article this week, this subject is worthy of a regular hour or an ultimate issues hour. But I'm going to do it as an ultimate issues hour because the fate of the world and its values hangs in the balance. My article this week, my column, every Tuesday it comes out. It's on my website. It's a town hall, and it will be at the Daily Wire, and it will be at American Greatness and many other wonderful sites. So I speak to you with a sad, sad note. America is now the greatest exporter of toxic ideas in the world today. Let me show you how my article begins today. You'll understand the point that I wish to make. At the present time, China is the greatest threat to world stability. Russia is the world's premier aggressor nation, and Islamist groups are the primary exporters of terror and totalitarianism. And for the first time in history, America is the world's major exporter of destructive ideas. Yep, this is hard for me to write. One of my books is titled, Still the Best Hope, Why the World Needs American Values to Triumph. It contrasts American values with leftist values and makes the case that the American value system is the finest ever devised. I define American values as liberty in God we trust, e pluribus unum. No other country has these. It is good for every country. But America has been gradually abandoning its unique value system and is consequently becoming a less free, less humane, less prosperous, and more corrupt country. In fact, at this moment, America is no longer the best country, the exceptional country it has been since 1776. There may not be a better country, but that is cold comfort. We are in the incredible position of being feared by many other relatively free societies. More than a few European countries actually reject America's current values, and they are right to do so. The most obvious example of America in decline is the perverse American doctrine surrounding transgender issues. The sex gender of any individual is not a given fact. Men give birth. Men who say they are women may compete in women's sports, and physicians in children's hospitals are right to surgically cut off the healthy breasts of young women, and even girls who say they are boys. America's war on truth, science, and children has rendered America increasingly an outlier in the Western world. More and more European countries are rejecting the perverse worlds of Yale and virtually every other American university, of the New York Times and virtually every other mainstream left-wing medium, of Boston Children's Hospital and virtually every other children's hospital, and of the University of Minnesota Medical School and virtually every other medical school. Switzerland has just announced that as far as the Swiss nation and government are concerned, sex is not non-binary. In Switzerland, there are only two sexes, as has been the case in essentially every civilization in recorded history, because that is the reality. As reported by AP, but apparently not the New York Times or elsewhere in the mainstream left-wing media, Swiss citizens, quote, are entered into the civil registry as male or female, with no other option. The Swiss Federal Council declared the binary gender model is still strongly anchored in Swiss society. Sweden. The American left's most admired society until it broke with the rest of the West by allowing its children to stay in school during the COVID hysteria, has also broken with America on the transgender issue. Sweden's National Board of Health and Welfare ended the practice of prescribing puberty blockers for minors under age 18, and as of December, mastectomies will only be offered in the rarest of circumstances. Thomas Linden, a head of the National Board, announced, young people who suffer from gender dysphoria need to be able to quickly receive an investigation and be offered adequate care measures based on the health and medical services assessment of the care needs. Now listen, good psychosocial care is fundamental. In other words, if a Swedish teenage girl says she is a boy, Sweden will offer psychosocial care. Almost never hormone blockers, let alone a mastectomy. Between Sweden's new policy on gender dysphoria and its allowing children to stay in school throughout the COVID epidemic, an American must sadly conclude that at this time in history, Sweden cares for its young people considerably more than America does. I want to repeat that. Between Sweden's new policy on gender dysphoria and its allowing children to stay in school throughout the COVID epidemic, an American must sadly conclude that at this time in history, Sweden cares for its young people considerably more than America does. I never believed in my wildest dreams that I would ever write or say that. In England last October, the National Health Service, NHS, announced in the words of the Daily Mail that, quote, children who believe they are trans are probably just going through a short-lived phase. Therefore, logic and morality say we should not make permanent life-altering changes to their bodies with drugs and surgery. In addition, quote, the NHS England draft guidelines are part of the Health Service's plan to close the highly controversial Gender Identity Development Service at the Tavistock Clinic, the country's only gender identity service for children. It is scheduled to shut its doors in the spring after a review ruled that the service was unsafe. Typical of the changes taking place in the UK regarding the transgender issues, Stella O'Malley, a psychotherapist and director of GenSpect, an international transgender care group based in England, advised, quote, professionals working with children need to make sure they aren't inadvertently causing harm by providing short-term relief that leads to long-term distress. At GenSpect, we don't think changing pronouns helps anyone. Wow. Did you hear that? Wow. This is a transgender care place, international. We don't think changing pronouns helps anyone. It creates more problems than it resolves. So far, I've covered Sweden, Switzerland, England, France. In France, the National Academy of Medicine has issued a statement advocating psychosocial support rather than hormone blockers and surgery for young people with gender dysphoria. Finland has already enacted a similar policy decision as early as 2020. 13 European countries now reject the American non-binary attack on human sexuality and children. With regard to children's well-being, there are many countries in which American parents would rather raise their child. I never imagined I would ever believe that. That's not the only toxic ideas that this country is sending to the world. 1-8-PRAGER-776, Ultimate Issues Hour. My Pillow is excited to bring you their biggest bedding sale ever, and just in time for Christmas. For a limited time, get the Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98, a set of pillowcases for only $9.98, and rejuvenate your bed with a My Pillow mattress topper for as low as $99.99. They also have blankets in a variety of sizes, colors, and styles. They even have blankets for your pets. Get duvets, quilts, down comforters, body pillows, bolster pillows, and so much more, all with the biggest discounts of the year happening now. They're also extending their money-back guarantee for Christmas until March 1st, 2023, making them the perfect gifts for your friends, your family, and everyone you know. So go to MyPillow.com and use the promo code Prager, or call 800-761-6302. You'll get huge discounts on all MyPillow bedding products, including the Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98, and get all your shopping done now while quantities last.
Think I was crazy, some kind of lady. So I might.
All right, everybody, Dennis Prager here, Ultimate Issues Hour. This is a real issue. How this country is the greatest exporter of bad ideas in the world today. Do you understand? I've devoted my life as one who is in love with America, and I am saying this. Do you realize how rapidly the left has destroyed this country as a force for good in the world? 13 European countries have rejected the American evil of what is done to children in the name of transgender. We are the sickest of all of them. We might even be sicker than Canada, but I'm not sure. Canada may be tied with us. I read to you about Sweden, Finland, Switzerland, England, how they reject this entire evil of telling children that sex is non-binary. 1-8-PRAGER-776 877-243-7776. Do you have friends, relatives in other countries? Do you have an experience with the export of sick ideas that is coming from this country? The Biden administration exports this stuff? Embassies decked in LGBT flags and banners. And I could tell you what is happening in the armed forces, and I will either this hour or some future hour. This is the sword to fall on, the non-binary sex issue. I got to tell you, it's an amazing development to think that this country exports the worst ideas. 1-8-PRAGER-776. It's not only in that realm, it's also in the race realm, where we send out this the notion of white evil and Western civilization evil. This has been rejected by nearly every European country. We used to think of European countries as being to the left of the United States. They are, in some ways, in terms of social programs, but they are not in terms of culture. Culture, we are way to the left. I don't know about the other countries. It's 13 European countries who have rejected our values, and they should. I mean, do you realize what I wrote? That in terms of raising your child, you would do better right now in many European countries than you would in the United States. As recently as 3 years ago, I could not imagine I would ever write that or say that. You have a better chance of raising a healthy kid at a French school or a Finnish school or a Swedish school than an American school. I'm shaking my head. You can see me shake my head if you're watching the show, but you'll have to take my word for granted if not. And then on the race issues, what we are sending out on the Western civilization issues, I don't know how European orchestras are doing it. Are European orchestras dropping blind? What is it? Blind? Not blind test. Anyway, it is a blind test where you don't see the musician because you can only be influenced by how well they play the instrument. Blind audition, is that it? Blind audition. The whole thing was set up to combat racism, and now the left wants to reintroduce racism. You're a violinist. You sit behind a curtain. Nobody knows if you're male or female. Nobody knows if you are Western looking, Eastern looking, black, white, Hispanic, nothing. All they know is how well you play the violin. I would say that the only place left where this toxicity has not affected is sports. Because people, let's put it this way, the NFL, for which I have contempt, but nevertheless, the NFL respects football more than orchestra management respects Western music. They're not prepared in any sport to tamper with the quality of players in the name of race. Hockey is not having blind, well, no, they have blind. You can't have blind auditions in sports, so forget that. Hockey is not having affirmative action. Maybe they are in the front office, but they're not on the rink. On the ice, as they say in hockey. There are virtually no non-whites in hockey. There are extremely few non-blacks in basketball. Nobody cares. People only care about seeing the best. But that no longer holds true for any other arena of life, including medicine, including airplane pilots. United Airlines has announced it's reserving half of its pilot education places for women. And I think women and minorities. But I certainly remember women. So they have announced at United Airlines, we will not be seeking the best pilots. We will be seeking female pilots. By the way, a female pilot can be the best pilot. Nobody denies that. Nobody. But once you start choosing on the basis of color and sex, then it's clear you have placed that above excellence. Is there any airline in Europe that has decided to make pilots, to hire pilots, both make and hire pilots, on the basis of their sex or color? That's what I mean. We are the exporter of the worst ideas in the world today. China, Iran, Islamist terrorists, and Russia, they're different threats. Hi everybody, 1-8-PRAGER-776. How do you react to my column and my theme of this Ultimate Issues Hour, that America now has become the greatest exporter of bad ideas in the world? Can you think of a rival? Do you agree with me? Does it shock you to think about it? I'm very curious about how you react to it. Between the non-binary idea, a denial of reality that is as denying, as saying the earth is flat, to the idea that the West is no better than any other place, that race is a very important factor in human life. In other words, it determines whom you are, that there is something innately different between a white person and a black person. You realize how sick the whole thing has become. There's no innate difference between male and female for the left, but there is an innate difference between white people and black people. Wow. That is quite something. Think about that, right? They have black graduation exercises at Columbia University, but there are no male graduation exercises at Columbia University, no female. So this is the sick world in which we live and which we are exporting to other countries. There are innate racial differences, but not innate sexual differences. What do you think of my idea that it might be better for you to raise a child in 13 European countries than in the United States? I have a very strong inner disposition, so I can take bad news, but I got to tell you, it is a blow. I admit it. It is a blow for me to tell you that you might raise, the odds are you would raise a healthier child in any number of European countries than in the United States, if we rely on the society and on the school to be the primary influencers of our children. Now you'll say you're the primary influence on your child. I hope you are. But it is a very big battle to battle society and teachers and schools and teachers and teachers and teachers and teachers. Did I say teachers? America has exported the ideas of liberty, especially liberty, for all of its history. When they demonstrated in Hong Kong 2 years ago against the Chinese takeover of their country, of their little peninsula, they marched with an American flag. They didn't march with the French flag or a Norwegian flag. They marched with an American flag. I don't know if they would today. What do you think? Well, you got to fight. I mean, that's why what America does, this affects the world. Where do you think Europeans got these ideas from? Us. We're not exporting liberty. Hello, everybody. Dennis Prager here. A very distressing Ultimate Issues Hour, I fully acknowledge. My column this week is that America is the greatest exporter of bad ideas in the world. The Chinese are the greatest threat to stability. The Russians are the biggest aggressor nation right now. The Islamists are the most totalitarian and greatest producers of terror. And the United States is the greatest producer of destructive ideas because the left has taken over every institution essentially in the United States. This is a very big deal. What happens in California affects America. What happens in America affects the world. I reported to you earlier in the show that as of today, the beginning of 2023, there is a law in California that makes it a sanctuary state for transgender kids. And we already saw what happened. A divorced couple in Texas, the mother took the twin boys out of Texas. I don't even know if that's legal, but she took them to California because she is raising one of them to be a girl, starting from the age of 2. And anything that happens in California under this new law is not reported to the other parent. So if he has his penis removed, in other words, or castrated, the father will not be informed of it. And if these things move from California to the rest of America, and then they move to the world. But the world is pushing back, as I read to you from my column of today. The world is pushing back. The head of France is a man of the left, and he announced that he's sick of the wokeism coming from the United States. Macron. I mean, it's almost shocking. The United States of America is to the left of the President of France. Is he president or prime minister? I think he's president. And that's amazing. But there is no lefter than the United States left. That's another thing that people don't realize. The left in Brazil, let's say, where their candidate just won election, this is on economic issues, vast expansion of government, more printing of money, more national debt, more control of people's lives. But I don't know how big the new president of Brazil is on non-binary teaching in elementary schools. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. But as a general rule, obviously, the United States is a greater influence with its movies and its media and its music than other countries. Yes, this is a very serious issue. And let's go to Dayton, Ohio, and Phil. Hello, Phil.
Hi, Dennis. How are you doing today?
Okay, thank you.
I just something clicked in my mind concerning the connection with religion and these bad ideas that they're saying we are exporting. And I agree with you. But what role do you see religion in these bad ideas? Are they like a smoke screen, or what's the connection there?
Well, unfortunately, as I noted during COVID and the embracing of lockdowns by the vast majority of synagogues and churches, the only place that can resist, that even has the power to resist or the ideological bases of resistance, is religion. And most priests, rabbis, and ministers were as sheep-like as most college presidents. I always find that fascinating, that people who truly consider themselves religious don't have courage. If you're religious and don't have courage, it's worthy of its own ultimate issues hour. If you're religious and don't have courage, that means you fear people more than you fear God. So what is your religion worth? What does it really mean? if you obey irrational secular authority and you don't march to the beat of God's drum, why are you any different from the atheist? That is why there's got to be some inner accounting of the soul that has to take place in Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, and Mormon circles. I admit my biggest disappointment was the group that I expect the most from, LDS. The closing of all their services. And I thought, don't you, if any group marches to the beat of its own drum, isn't it the Mormon Church? You're going to take orders from the secular state that make no sense and that shut down people's ability to go to church? But hey, if it happened there and it happened in Judaism, well, again, the only exceptions were the Orthodox. And certainly the modern Orthodox, did not resist. So, my friend, your question is a fair one, but we saw a massive failure in the last 2 years in the religious world. Maybe it'll be different next time. Back in a moment. All right, everybody, final segment. It is an interesting issue. People ask me all the time, so with all these terrible things happening, where would you rather live? And I never have an answer, and I still don't have an answer. But I will admit, if my only consideration were raising children, and if I were given the condition, you must send your child to one of the nation's public schools. In other words, I couldn't homeschool. I had to send my child to a government school, i.e. a public school. Then I would have to say, I think that I would have to move. Maybe, of course, the answer would be just to move to Florida. That's a possibility. But if my choice were California or another country, and the only consideration were I had to raise children and send them to a public school, I can't believe I'm saying this, but that's what this hour has been about. The terrible values and ideas that America's sending across the world, and the world is now, at least parts of it, are rejecting. England shutting down its largest trans children's center. Finland not allowing for non-binary. Switzerland not having non-binary. You're a boy or a girl, you're a man or a woman, which is exactly the case. That is the way it is. You have to fight. I have zero inclination to just, what is the word? Fold up my tent. So we got another year of fighting, and I've kept the gladiator theme of the show because we're continuing to fight. Nobody promised, a bowl of cherries. Nobody said that was what life would be. We had it so good in America since World War II, we forgot that the battle for civilization is a never-ending battle. Ronald Reagan was right. We're always one generation away from losing freedom. Okay, let's fight in 2023. Happy New Year, my friends. Dennis Prager here. Thanks for listening to the Daily Dennis Prager Podcast. To hear the entire 3 hours of my radio show, commercial-free, every single day, become a member of Pragertopia. You'll also get access to 15 years' worth of archives, as well as the daily show prep. Subscribe at pragertopia.com.